It's Monday night.
I've been in the game a long time. When a catcher catches the ball and it's strike three, you call the guy out. It's that simple, isn't it?
And if it's Monday, it's the knee jerks.
I'm not going to sit here and rip umpires. But you saw what you saw, clearly saw what you saw. I just saw it for the 10th time. Write it and say something once in a while. Have the nerve to say something.
Detroit sports talk with attitude.
Attitude on three. 1, 2, 3. Attitude.
Coming up tonight, will Big Al guess whose birthday it is? Who are the jerks of the week? What will Eno rant about now? The answers coming up next. Two guys who know Detroit sports. The voice of reason, Greg Eno and Big Al Beaton.
It's Monday, September 9th, 2019, the day after a loss that seems to be sticking in a lot of people's craws, and that's really what we're going to concentrate tonight. But that means it's also time for the Knee Jerks, Detroit Sports Talk of Eno and Big Al. I'm the Big Al, the equation. Al Beaton, longtime Detroit-based podcaster and blogger. Joining me, as always, when he's got the time, he's got a lot of family stuff going on. That's why we're recording on an odd night, but that would be Greg Eno of Out of Bounds, the winged wheeler, and also I hear he's like a 5-star chef. So, Greg, what's up?
I don't know where you heard that, but
I think I
yelped. I am Greg Eno from my Out of Bounds, the WordPress blog, and the Winged Wheeler, my Red Wings blog. You can follow me at Greg Eno on Twitter, and at the Knee Jerks. You can follow us on Twitter at the Knee Jerks. I'm here. Thanks for the introduction, Al. It's good to be with you. It's going to be a interesting next hour or so as we break down this Lions debacle. But it's before I get into that, though, before we talk about that, before we do the birthday game, I want some exciting news. We will be joined on September 22nd by our good friend Mick McCabe of the Detroit Free Press, who's the semi-retired high school writer for the Free Press. Son of Swami, and he is going to be joining us talking about a number of things, but mainly a column that he wrote. Gosh, but by the time we had Mick on, it'll probably be about a month. Yeah,
because we brought it up at the end of our last show.
Yeah,
because it had just gone live then. Yeah,
he took to task he was kind of reflecting on the differences in high school sports over the past 50 years, some 50 years, and he said that basically he put a lot of the blame at the feet of the parents. And there are other things too that he touched on, but we want to talk about that. We want to just talk about some other things relative to high school sports. And of course, his induction last year, which we didn't get a chance to talk to him about, to the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame last year. We just didn't get Mick on to talk about that. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about whatever else comes to mind. He's a very colorful guy. We're looking forward to that. That'll be September 22nd on the Knee Jerks, the first guest we've had in quite some time. But before we get to this menu that we have, let's play a game that we like to call Whose Birthday Is It, Maestro?
We baked you a birthday cake. If you get a tummy ache and you moan and groan and woe, don't forget we told you so. Happy birthday! Happy birthday!
We all know how we play this game right now. I'll give Al a clue or two or three of an individual whose birthday it is today in the world of sports. And if Al can correctly guess that person within the first two clues, he'll win a whole variety of Twinings teas.
What was that again?
Twinings teas.
Oh. Okay. Well, you didn't have anything for that tonight, did you? So Greg just looked around in his kitchen and grabbed what he saw. All right. Fire away, please.
I've been found out. It's still a good gift. Don't
well, I know. I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. That's for damn sure.
For sure. This person now was made his name in the world of football. Was born on this date in 1949. So he's 70 today. Happy birthday to him. 70 years old today. He, again, football player. One of these guys that made a name for himself on the field and also off the field. Sometimes these off the field guys, once they get behind a microphone, that's all they're known for. But this player was known pretty much as a player as well. I will tell you that he's 70 today. I will tell you that he played primarily in the National Football Conference Eastern Division.
Okay.
And I will tell you that he also did a little bit of a turn in up north of us, north of the border, for a time. And I will tell you that he has a championship ring on his finger.
Okay, you mentioned he played north of the border. Obviously, so it's a CFL guy. Played in the East, that would mean Dallas, Washington, Philadelphia, Giants. I'll just throw it out. Is it Joe Theismann?
It is.
Yeah.
Very good.
It was Canada that gave it away.
Yeah, well, it's funny with these guys. With a guy like that, it's hard for me to give you enough to go on, but yet not enough to make it be a slam dunk. But you're absolutely right.
Or Theismann before he changed the pronunciation of his name.
Right.
Yeah.
To rhyme with Heisman Trophy. He was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 2003. I didn't know that. I didn't know that he was in the College Football Hall of Fame. But he did not play long.
No, didn't you know it's a law? Every Notre Dame quarterback gets elected.
Yeah. And he did play 3 years in Toronto, and then came to the States and played the 12 years with the Redskins. And of course, his career ended with that horrific injury.
National television. We're watching that live.
Monday Night Football, and so anyway, Joe Theismann, and also I think married to was it Kathy Lee Crosby? Was his wife's name?
I couldn't tell you for sure. Is in the actress?
Is in the actress, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think that's who he's married to, Kathy Lee Crosby. Anyway, so Twining's tease.
I am very disappointed in you. I'm expecting something. I have no idea. Let's just move on because we actually have a kind of a hard out on this podcast anyway. Greg needs to get out of here. So before I rant and rave any more about my action, get the question on the first one, and he just gives me this. Let's just get this going because it's going to be a little shorter show than normal tonight. We're just going to talk strictly about the Lions. And as we mentioned, as we were talking before the show, before we started recording, there's not a lot going on anyway, unless you want to rant about the Tigers losing 100 games, and there's literally nothing going on other than the prospect tournament with the Red Wings and the Pistons. Not a damn thing. So, considering what happened yesterday, and we'll have plenty to talk about for about the next hour or so. And considering what happened yesterday, Greg, with the Lions, it's probably for the best that we didn't record immediately after that, after the game, like we were originally going to, which would have been our plan. And because when we were talking, I mentioned, I'm in an age now where I've seen so much, and there's been a lot of winning throughout my lifetime, a lot of suckage throughout my lifetime. But I've grown to the point where I try not to let games ruin the rest of my day or ruin what's going on around me. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not 18. I'm not 12. Whatever. When games like that would absolutely destroy me, but for whatever reason, Greg, which we'll get into, this game really stuck in my craw last night there'll be numerous reasons why, which we'll go into, but this game, the Lions were under control. I wouldn't say they dominated, but they had the game under control for 3 quarters, let the whole thing get away, blew an 18-point lead in the fourth quarter, and we're lucky to end up with a 27-27 tie in Arizona against a quarterback who was 5'8" in his stocking feet, run by a head coach who went under 500 in the mediocre Big 12 at Texas Tech, and they had the worst record in the league last year. And Rob's talking about Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury, and obviously the Cardinals, who, for all intents and purposes, I still think they're going to be a bad team this year. And to see the Lions just do the most Lion-esque stuff in that game, Greg, it brought back memories of me crying in front of the TV when I was like 9 years old when the Lions lost that 5-0 game to Dallas, or watching Sterling Sharp run loose in the 10 yards behind the secondary in the playoff game, or Eddie Murray missing the field goal after Gary Danielson threw 5 picks and the Lions still could have beat the damn Niners, and everything from the ball being knocked out of the end zone, to the process game, to the illegal challenge game, to the run the clock off game. For some reason, I think this game kind of brought it all to a head inside of me. Maybe it was bubbling up deep inside, and I was just trying to keep it, hidden. But thank goodness I was by myself last night watching this game, because if someone was with me, they would have wondered if something the matter. Because this game genuinely pissed me off. And for a game to piss me off at the age I'm at now with all the shit I've seen as a fan, that is really saying something. And about the only team left in this town that can do that, Greg, is the goddamn Lions. Okay, well, thanks for letting me rant. Okay.
No, that's fine. I think that one of the reasons why you may have taken that game so much to heart was that it was the first game of the season.
Right.
And, there's always hope springs eternal. And, last year was the blowout loss to the Jets on Monday Night Football. And that was a different dynamic. They weren't really ever in that game.
Yeah, that game was over at the first quarter.
They started off strong, like you said. They seem to have everything under control. And by the way, you're right about Kyler Murray. I don't know where they get off listing him at 5'10". I don't know in what world he's 5'10".
I texted the girlfriend in the middle of the game saying, their quarterback looks smaller than your 5-year-old nephew surrounded by all these linemen. That's how small he looks out there.
I said, if he's 5'8", I tweeted out, I said, if he's 5'8", then I'm 7'8".
Yes.
I mean, he was 5'10", I'm 7'8",
yeah.
Because he was, like you said, he looked he was regardless of his height, though. The Lions, I think one of the reasons why he took that game so hard was that it was the first game of the season. Looked like it was going to be a 1-0 start.
Yep,
and
which they really need. We'll
schedule after this, and so you wanted to be 1-0
right.
and beat the teams that you think you should be beating. They were a 2.5-point favorite, I think, in that game. And when you go into the fourth quarter, with the crowd out of it, the crowd is out of it. It's 24-6. They did a pan of the crowd. They're dejected. This is the Kyler Murray era, and it's starting off really poorly. And I think they had like 58 yards of offense in the first half, the Cardinals did, and not much more than that headed in the fourth quarter. And Murray was completely out of it.
He looked lost out there for about three quarters.
And all of a sudden, in the fourth quarter, he just, when 15, I think it was 15 out of 19 for 159 yards or something like that, a couple of touchdowns, 2-point conversion. He just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And, I think that when this is NFL, you have to play 60 minutes. You cannot take your foot off the accelerator in this league. You just can't do it. There's just, I don't care who you're facing. It doesn't take long for a player or a team to get their confidence back. And when you've got Hall of Fame players like Larry Fitzgerald on your team, they make a couple of plays, and all of a sudden Kyler Murray starts to feel good about himself. He starts to feel like, okay, I've got this Hall of Famer now that I'm throwing to, and all of a sudden the world is his oyster, and everything becomes possible. The crowd gets into it, and the Lions had no, answer for that momentum change. And once the momentum shifts in the NFL, it's awfully hard to shift it back.
And I will give the Cardinals some credit, in Kingsbury, just because he when the points are there, he took them. Because I was thinking, why aren't you going for 7 here? But he took the 3 and kept it. He did his damage. I'm keeping this a 2-score game, which it shouldn't have been at this point. The Lions, if they hadn't have shot themselves in the foot a couple of times, they should have been up, 3-4 scores easily. The way they dominated that game at times. But to his credit, he kept kicking field goals, kept them in that 14, 15-point range. And as you said, when the Lions went into what felt like they went into a shell offensively and defensively, the Cards were close enough to take advantage. And again, as you said, in the NFL, you can't go into the shell when you have a 2-score lead. It's a passing league at this point. And hell, we've seen the Lions do it how many times, Greg? Come back from 3 scores down late in games. So for the Lions to seemingly go into it's not a shell. At the very least, they started playing soft. I don't know if Matt Patricia today said we didn't play prevent, But whatever it was, they seemed to be playing soft. There were times they were just rushing 3 guys. And no matter what, even if you have, 8 guys go back, if you can't get to the passer, sooner or later someone's going to get open. And that's essentially what happened with Kyler Murray. And then he got, as you said, he got into a rhythm. He hit Fitzgerald with some nice passes. Fitzgerald also made a couple really nice catches. And the next thing you know, the Lions went from a 99% win probability at the start of the fourth quarter, according to 538, to hanging on for dear life and being lucky to walk out of there with a tie. And that was, for us, for the Lions supposedly being Patriots West, then I've seen the Patriots on Sunday Night Football literally stomping a mud hole in Pittsburgh. They didn't let up. They just kept scoring. That's how you have to be in the NFL. I don't know if it's what contributed to all this. Is it Patricia's philosophy? Is it how Bevell wants to run the offense? I don't know. Or was it because I'm hearing now, before we started the podcast, though, because the presser was late today, that the Lions were tired. Defensively, they were tired because they were the defense was on the field about 20 to 25 more plays than normal. And so that suddenly sounds like, are you blaming the players? That's what it comes off to me, rather than you're just defensive genius, aren't you? You were winning this schematic battle to whatever the hell happened in the fourth quarter. So I'm not thrilled with Matt Patricia right now, Greg. I wasn't thrilled. I was okay with the hiring, but after seeing what happened, how the start of last year, and they never really were able to truly bounce back, and now seeing what's going on this year, where it seems like deja vu all over again. Matt Patricia has done nothing to. Why should I have faith in this guy at this point? And I can't believe there's fans out there that still do.
Well, what didn't help that feeling was the timeout. The timeout that everybody's talking about.
This is going to be known as the timeout game, by the way.
There's so many different ways to lose. We can make a whole list of Lions ways to lose, preceded by the word "the."
Yeah.
Hail Mary, the prayer. Yeah. You can go on and on and on and on. And now we have the timeout. We've now added the timeout to the repertoire. That was never part of it before. That's a new one. That's a new one. So now here we are. Congratulations to the Lions, a new way. Hadn't had a timeout issue that cost them a game like that before that I know of. And now here we are. Mm-hmm. Confusion abounded on the sidelines. Apparently, Matt Patricia was afraid. I think it was a 3rd and 5.
3rd and 5, about 3 minutes left. There's no timeouts left with the Cards. A first down essentially ends the game, because then they're in Cardinals territory. They're in field goal range, and they can't stop the clock other than a 2-minute warning.
He was afraid.
Ends the game.
Patricia was afraid that Stafford wasn't going to get the snap off, and they would be penalized 5 yards, and would make it a 3rd and 10. Okay, fine. In the replay, one of the low-angle replays he showed of the play, you could see Bevell in the back. It looked like he was the one that was calling the timeout. Now, he may have been calling it at the behest of Patricia.
I think he was, because Patricia was in his Gatorade throne because of his – I think, anyway. But something's up, because something must have been arranged, because the head coach is supposed to be the guy who calls the timeout. So you're right about that. Yeah,
so, and then Stafford was saying, "Trust me," on the sideline.
I remember when it first went down, you could see he had his hands there, and he said, "I didn't call a timeout." He didn't know where the hell the timeout came from. And then when he finally left the field after that bizarre call they made instead of that, going 4 wides and throwing the ball 30 yards downfield, that's the trust me. And if you're watching the game, you're watching Fox. You could see him mouth those words, trust me, and that is the most pissed and animated I've seen Matt Stafford, I can't remember when, if ever.
Well, the bottom line is, when you're ahead in a game and the clock is winding down like that, The last thing you want to do is call a timeout. Now even if you're afraid of getting a delay of game penalty, the worst that's going to happen is you're going to get penalized 5 yards, and it's a 3rd and 10. It's not that big of a deal.
You're around midfield.
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. Now, you've got a quarterback who's been in the league 11 years, and who's been
being paid $28 million a year.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of can kind of see where Patricia's coming from in wanting to call that timeout, but there are a lot of plays in the NFL, Al, where the ball is snapped right at. I mean, you see that the play clock counting down on the screen. The viewers can see it,
right.
And how many times have you watched a play that you're surprised that there's not a delay of game penalty call, because it must be maybe the on the field time is not exactly in sync with what we see on the screen, because I've seen it go down to 0 on the screen and even wait a beat and the ball snapped and there's no flag. So that happens all the time in the NFL, where the play clock gets down to 0, less than a second, and the ball is snapped and there's no penalty. So Patricia panicked, I guess. I don't know. And it turned out to be, unfortunately, a very – now, having said that, you still have to make the play. You still have to – you have to put it behind you and say, okay, we burned a timeout. Now we got third. We still have 3rd and 5.
Yeah,
we still have 3rd and 5. And they weren't able to. You still have to convert. If they convert it, then nobody's talking about the timeout. So, I mean, they might talk about it and say, oh, that was kind of silly, but they dodged a bullet. But in this case, they did not make the conversion, and they had to punt the ball away. The punt was blocked or partially blocked. And there's one bad thing after another, and it looked like the Cardinals didn't even put on a punt block. The guy just rushed the edge and got his hand on the ball.
Yeah, it was Will Harris who was the who had edge. And Patricia said he just broke down. He didn't block.
Right. It wasn't even an all out, punt block formation. So, and they didn't, and they couldn't get a stop defensively to save their souls. Could not get a 3rd down stop. Could not get off the field. Just couldn't get off the field. Could not get off the field against a rookie quarterback who looked like he was a complete mess in the first 45 minutes of that game. Just complete mess, no confidence, and they let this kid off the hook, and they let the Cardinals off the hook. And I think I put a post up today. I said the Lions are the only team that can lose a game by the score of 27-27.
Yep. This is a tie that feels, it looks like a loss, feels like a loss. It's a loss, especially against a team that was 3-13 last year. And there was a few things about the timeout situation. Obviously, one, it was the perfect call for the defense because they were blitzing. There was a swing pass to the running back. I mean, he was wide open. If he doesn't score, he's getting anywhere from 10 to 20 yards at the very least. He's converting the first down. As long as he stays in bounds, the clock's going to keep running, and it would have ended the game. It was the perfect call. And in some ways, where he said, where you mentioned panic, I have a feeling maybe their coach is scared. Patricia was asked today, do you trust your quarterback? And of course, I trust my quarterback 1,000%. Well, you sure don't coach like you do.
Right.
By wanting to take the ball, you're taking the ball out of his hands, by this bizarre timeout call, by wanting to go to a far more conservative offense that realistically does, obviously, because of how the game situation went, Stafford threw a lot. He threw a lot like he did in the Scott Linehan days when he was OC. But, Patricia prefers that the Lions would just run clock and have a grounded-out ball game and essentially take the ball out of his gunslinging quarterback's hands. So if you ask me, Greg, Patricia coaches games like he doesn't want his quarterback running the show. Like he's coaching scared, like he's afraid he's going to make mistakes. But you're paying, he's an 11-year vet. He's set... And you're paying him $28 million to be what, a game manager? Because that's what it feels like to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, it boggles my mind how you can do what you were doing successfully for 45 minutes and then just totally get away from it.
Yes.
Almost willingly, on both sides of the football. Change your tactics defensively, change your tactics offensively.
Yeah, when they started rushing three guys at times, that made absolutely no sense. Because I always thought it was like relatively common knowledge in the NFL that you have a rookie quarterback, you throw the damn kitchen sink at him and overwhelm him, make decisions. You make him be a quarterback. And for 3 quarters, he couldn't do it. And as you said, all of a sudden, they changed strategy? What the hell happened? And it's more than just the defensive line got tired, if you ask me.
No, it's well, if they got tired, it's because they were only rushing 3 guys, and they I mean, this I'm getting tired of hearing I got to coach better. It's on me.
Thank you for that.
I'm so tired. I'm tired of that line. By the way, that's getting old already. It may be that this job is just too big. How many times are we seeing coordinators reveal that they are really good coordinators, and that's where it ends? Mm-hmm. I mean, as a head coach, he makes a good defensive coordinator. I mean, that's the joke. I mean, it's happened. It's not just him. There's many guys who have moving that one, getting that promotion, moving from a coordinator position to the head coaching job, and it just swallows them up whole. I mean, sometimes it just does. I don't know. I can't explain it other than I think you're right when you said that they coached like they were a little scared. They didn't. They probably should have won that game 38-13 or something like that. Yeah. It was 24-6 going in the fourth quarter. They should have just, everything was just going hunky-dory. There was no reason to change anything or do anything differently. Now I'm sure Patricia would tell you that, well, we didn't really do that much differently. It was what they did. Well, either way, it's a bad look regardless. You can't let a kid like that, I don't care if he's playing at home or not.
Right.
He was an absolute mess after 3 quarters. He was. There was a tweet, which is a premature tweet, of course, but there was a tweet like in the second quarter from a Cardinal fan who said, "Well, Kyler Murray's a bust." Well, you know how that overreaction, after 2 quarters. But that's he wasn't a bust, but he was a mess after 3 quarters. The Lions had him buffaloed, and he was making bad mistakes, making rookie mistakes. He took a couple of bad sacks. Instead of throwing the football, he made a bad interception. Instead of throwing it away, he just was not. They knocked his passes down left and right. He looked like he was not a bust, but he looked like, well, this is the number 1 pick in the whole draft. Yeah. And then in the fourth quarter, he played like Joe Montana and Tom Brady rolled up into one. When that happens, Al, it's you got to give credit to Murray. Clearly, I mean, obviously he's the one who did it. But when that kind of a turnaround happens that abruptly, that is more an indictment on the defense than it is on how good that kid. That kid just all of a sudden become. There was a reason he became that combination of Brady Montana in the fourth quarter. It's because the Lions let him become Brady Montana in the fourth quarter. Right. It wasn't they. So that's more on them than anything Murray did. He took advantage of what and then again the Fitzgerald factor didn't hurt, but they just it was a complete breakdown. It was a complete breakdown in the fourth quarter against a not very good team in a building that was dead.
Yes,
dead which is exactly what you want in the NFL. You go into an opposing team's building. And you start the fourth quarter with the crowd as out of it as they were. That's a dream come true. Yeah. That's what you live for. That's why you get on the plane and fly out there to play these games to get yourself in a position where you start the fourth quarter with the crowd sitting on their hands. That's what you want, and that's served up to you that's served up on a silver platter, and they just completely let it slip through their fingers.
Yeah, and to go back to your point about as egregious the timeout thing was, that didn't completely lose them the game. Like you said, it was still 3rd down, it was still 3rd and 5,
right?
And they had other opportunities to win the game. No, even when it went into overtime. No, they got the ball. Well, it's hard to count saying they got the ball twice in overtime because of that. The second time they got it, it was like less than a minute to go when they were down at the 5-yard line. But they had opportunities to win that game even after the timeout fiasco, and that's when you would hope, as well as Matt Stafford played yesterday, as you know, push at almost 400 yards passing, I believe 3 touchdowns, 60% completion rate. He still could, he's got to put them in the end zone in that overtime when they got the ball the first time, and actually drove them down to the red zone around the 20-yard line, and that drive just came to a complete and utter stall, forcing them to kick the field goal. Which is when that happened, I thought for sure they were going to lose the damn game. But for as well as Stafford played, and Stafford played pretty darn well, he had opportunities where he could have ended this game, and he wasn't. He didn't come. I was expecting, especially in overtime, to see the Stafford we saw 2 years ago with all those crazy comebacks. I know those tend to be fluky, but the guy was nails in a lot of these similar situations in the past. And for whatever reason, they could not do a thing once they got in the red zone. I don't know if that's on Stafford. I don't know if it's on the scheme. I don't know if it's on the receivers for not getting separation. I don't know, but it was. The opportunity to win this game was still there, and Lions being the Lions, they couldn't punch it into the end zone. And I think, that's, I don't know if that's going to be the legacy of Stafford at this point as a guy that just can't get them over the hump. But, it's as well as he played yesterday, he didn't play well enough to beat Kyler Murray.
Well, which is funny because again, when they put the QB comparison stat on the screen,
yeah.
it was you could tell who was the 11-year veteran, who was the rookie. I mean, it was just
right.
But no, you're right. There's always something. There's always something with this team. There's just something that they don't do in key situations. There's just something. There's always something that and I don't. I don't know if it's some sort of even players like let's talk about Danny Amendola, for example. He was the guy who's got the Patriot way. He played with Tom Brady forever.
Super Bowl rings, had 100 yards receiving yesterday.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and
he was good. He was
good. He played with Miami last year, but for the most part, he's a Patriot. And even he had a mental breakdown when he didn't get out of bounds in overtime. So and
that's a rookie mistake. Really Trey Flowers, and he's a 34-year-old veteran.
Right. Trey Flowers gets called for a face mask.
That's another one.
And these are guys that it just seems like when they come here, you almost feel like you could bring Brady here, and he would turn into somebody that wasn't Tom Brady. Yeah. There's something about when they put that uniform on. I don't know what I can't explain. It's really a phenomenon. I don't pretend to know it. I don't pretend to understand it. It's almost like it's really truly a phenomenon. I'm not trying to. I'm not going to talk about. This is not a curse thing. I don't talk curses. Right. I don't believe that stuff. I'm not talking about that. But there's something else going on here, which I don't understand, and I don't even know if it's the ownership. I know that's an easy one to blame because they've been here forever, and they are the only constant in this whole thing. So ultimately, the buck does stop there, but. It just seems like, Al, that what goes on here is psychological, and it's not Martha Ford, it's not Bill Ford, it's not any of that. It's there's something that goes on between the ears with these guys when they put that lion helmet on. It's just I know every team in the NFL has got their warts. I know a lot of fans. I've always said it that in the NFL. Every 16 teams fans want the coach fired, and the following Monday, the other 16 teams fans want their coach fired. That's the way it is. But it just seems like it just we're closer to it because we're in this city, but it just seems like that this kind of stuff just happens to this team way more than anybody else. And I don't know. I can't explain it. I can't. I suppose you could say, well, they've never. When you think about it, they've never really brought. It's not even. They've never really brought. The only thing they really haven't tried yet is they haven't really brought in a top shelf coach. I mean, top shelf. I'm not talking about a guy who's pretty good or he's been to the Super Bowl in the past. Ross, Bobby, Caldwell, Jim. I'm talking about guys who McCaffrey, Don. I'm talking about guys who actually have, the top. That's the one thing they haven't tried.
Yeah.
The Red Wings brought in Scotty Bowman. The Tigers brought in Sparky Anderson. The Pistons brought in Larry Brown.
Yeah.
Each of those three franchises brought in top coaches, the top guys in their field, in their respective sports. It doesn't get any better than Scotty. It doesn't get much better than Larry Brown's. I know he's been a nomad, but he's got a great reputation. He's been very successful. Sparky won championships with Cincinnati. He was the most sought after manager when the Tigers hired him.
Right.
And the Lions haven't really done that. They've never really ever done that. That's the one thing they haven't tried. And the whole Ford ownership, they have not really gone out there and tried to secure a guy that's on the top of his game, coaching wise. They've never brought in anybody like that before. That's the one thing they haven't tried. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's because they've never really brought in a guy. And I know Jim Caldwell was a fine man. He was a pretty good coach. I think that, Jim Schwartz did some nice things while he was here. Monty Clark. They all had their Wayne Fonts. They all had their moments.
Yeah.
But they've never really gone out there and just shocked the football world like the Cowboys did back when they brought in Parcells.
Right.
The Cowboys have done that all the time. They always bring these.
Yeah, going back to Jimmy Johnson.
Barry Switzer. They've always been these renegade, grabbing these guys at the top of their game, whether they be from college or from pro. Never afraid to go out and get a big name guy. Other franchises have done that as well. Now it hasn't always been successful, granted.
No.
But the Lions have. That's the one thing that and I'm thinking back to the history. I think you'd agree with me that that's the one thing they haven't really tried. They have not really brought in a guy that everybody goes, oh my God, so-and-so is going to coach the Lions?
Yeah.
That's amazing. They've never really done that. And I think that that's the one thing they haven't tried. And I don't know. I don't know who that would even be.
I think it would be something like when Jim Harbaugh became available with the San Francisco crowd. And the Lions would have been able to stamp him up instead of Michigan. That's the kind of guy we're talking about. Yeah. Because at that point, Harbaugh was considered, one of the elite coaches in the game. The blooms come off a little bit at Michigan, but he's still winning games and whatever. But that's the kind of thing I think you're talking about. Or say Mike Tomlin became available or something like that. And stamp him up. Like I said, so all these guys you talk about who did have a Super Bowl in their past, either winning it or being there, like Caldwell and guys like that, they were on the downside of their careers. They were older. They weren't up-and-comers either. I mean, these guys were past their peak. You make a good point about that.
What's funny about that, Al, is that the funny thing about that, maybe it's even actually cruelly ironic because the Ford family has widely been known around the league circles as being a wonderful,
great people to work for. Yeah.
Right. So many, even Bill Belichick, have gone on record. Oh, what a great family! What they treat me in his brief time here. They treated me so well. And there's so many league people. Tony Dungy has said it. They've all said it. How great these people are. Yet none of them have ever worked here. None of them have ever been hired here. None of them have. That's what's so ironic. It's like almost like
they've had Hall of Fame coaches on staffs, but never kept them.
There's been some. There was some scuttlebutt that they kind of thought about flirting with Parcells back in the mid 2000s, and I'm not sure how serious they were about that.
Right.
But all these big name pro football people are talking great stuff about the Lions, about the Ford family, and yet they've never reached out to these people to work for them.
Yeah.
They've never reached out to
or just say, give me one of your assistants. That's essentially what they do.
They bring in that that cheap knockoff version.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
well, enough said between Patricia and Belichick right there. That's your cheap knockoff, exactly.
You know, Bobby Ross, yes, he went to a Super Bowl. I get it, but you know, anybody can get to a Super Bowl, and they got blown out by the 49ers. I mean, that's not
Bobby
as impressive.
Ross at that point was an anachronism anyway.
If you made a list of coaches who've been to one Super Bowl and lost, I mean, that list is, and it's not very impressive, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, you know, going out and getting a guy that is just completely at the top of his game. He's leaving his other team to come to coach Detroit.
Yeah.
That's the one thing they've never tried, and that's really the only thing that's left, because they've tried everything else. They've tried changing, you know, management general managers and so forth. They've tried changing coaches a million times. That's the one thing that they've brought in fancy schmancy coordinators like Mike Martz and so forth, but they've never tried that let's shoot for the moon guy with the coach. And now if they do that and he comes in and he fails, well, then that's it. But that's the one thing that
and it's been done. It can happen. It brings to mind such as Mike Holmgren going to Seattle, for example. Didn't work.
Now I take that back. They did kind of try that, Al.
Yeah.
With Mariucci. They did try to...
But the problem with that, though, is that there was no other candidates.
Well, not only that, but Matt Millen did a poor job in vetting Mariucci out for that position. He went for the name, and he didn't look at, okay, does Mariucci's style fit what I have? Yeah. Do I have the quarterback to run the West Coast offense? Do I have the personnel? Do I have what he's going to need to be successful? And he only gave him 2 years and some change.
Yeah.
And he didn't give him a quarterback. So
Mike McMahon.
That was a tough one. You know, Harrington was here, and that didn't work out. And that's the closest they came to hiring a big name coach was Mariucci.
Yeah. And he had the track record in the Super Bowl and all that, but
he didn't win. He wasn't a winner.
Yeah. And it does say volumes that he never coached again either. He went to the NFL Network and stayed.
Right.
Yeah. So, but it's you know, and that's the thing. You know, we're talking about. You know, we're one game into the year. We're talking, what could they do? You know, here we are. Still got 15 games left in the season.
But it's not one game, Al. It's not one.
Yeah,
game.
I know he's 6-10-1.
Years.
Yeah.
It's 62 years plus one game of this nonsense, and that's what it's not. You know, this isn't an overreaction to a single game in a single season. This is a reaction to what's been going on for the past, you know, ever since you and I have been alive. Essentially.
Right? Yeah. We're past the Pollyanna stage where we're going to give this team the benefit of the doubt in any decision it makes. You know, we've seen too much. We've seen this over and over and over again. You know, and this team has never, ended a season with the fan base happy. The closest it's ever happened was 91, and even then, in 91, they got absolutely destroyed in the NFC Championship game, which left a huge sour taste in your mouth. So, you know, it's all, like I said, even when things go great, like they did in 1991, winning that playoff game, and I don't think I've ever been happier watching a football game, period, than watching the Lions destroy the Cowboys in that playoff game. And then to just have all your hopes just absolutely crushed by Washington, curb stomping them, literally curb stomping them in a championship game, and they've never come close again since.
Well, you know about that, Al. If you look at the team that they beat, the Cowboys. Yeah. And you look at in that playoff game, and you look at the direction of the two franchises after that game. Now the Lions destroyed the Cowboys. I think it was like 38-7. They completely destroyed them. In that game, something like that. Yeah. It was a blowout. And then what happened to the Cowboys? They went on and won 1 million Super Bowls after that, and became the class of the NFC. Mm-hmm. Even when they weren't winning Super Bowls, they were always in the championship game, NFC championship game. And what happened to the Lions? Yeah, they made the playoffs a couple of times after that. Granted.
Yeah, they were first round fodder.
But they did not take that leap. The Cowboys were destroyed in that game. They played Brulline and Aikman. It was a mess, and they looked completely outclassed by the Lions.
And I even remember, and you can still find that game. I think it's on YouTube right now. Mm-hmm. That you listen to the announcers in that game, and they're talking about the Lions being at the same level as the Cowboys, as here are two young, up-and-coming teams that are going to be playoff fixtures for years, and are going to make noise. One of them did.
Yep.
And the other one, never found a quarterback, and they ended up with they had a head coach who would sacrifice his mother to the job of his mother to keep a job, and that's all water under the bridge. But,
right. Yeah.
But that's the thing with this team, Greg. When we see stuff like this, what we saw yesterday, what we saw opening day last year, it dredges up all this crap, all the stuff we've seen in our cases, for 40-plus years. And you can't you just can't put it in a little box and just keep it away. It's always going to open up. It's always going to bubble to the top because we've seen the same shit over and over and over again. This is a team who took a Hall of Fame linebacker, one of the best players in football history, who was probably one of their best coaches in team history, in Joe Schmidt. He was the last guy to have a winning record till Jim Caldwell. And the franchise was so screwed up then that he left the NFL. He quit and walked away from the game entirely. And nothing for the most part, nothing has changed in this franchise. It's still the same kind of dysfunctional crap.
And when the Lions hired Schmidt, that was kind of unusual to bring a guy in who was that closely removed from his playing career to becoming a head coach. And you're right, he had some really good, very good defenses that were reflective of the kind of defensive player that he was.
Yep.
And he had a lot of talent defensively. Yep. And they were I still maintain that 1970 team, had it been able to get past the Cowboys,
they could have done damage.
Might have won the Super Bowl. I mean, that's how good that team was.
Yep.
But Joe had enough. He took the fans, and Russ Thomas took the fun out of everything, and he
walked away from football altogether.
Yep, he sure did. He never coached another game again, and he just walked away from the game. Was completely happy doing so, and never got the itch to get back into it. And
and that's essentially been our fandom ever since. We both came of age, at least my first years as a Lions fan, when Joe Schmidt was running the team, and Russ Thomas. And Russ Thomas is, if you're of a certain age, he still gives you nightmares thinking about the decisions that the team made under his watch. But all right, okay, enough about the past. Let's talk a little bit about because we need to wrap this up in the next 30 minutes. Because at this rate, we could go on for a couple hours. We need to talk about some of the stuff we saw. I think was really, I found disturbing. Specifically, the play of the offensive line, Taylor Decker in specific.
Yeah.
They were talked up. One of the reasons they brought in Darrell Bevell is because they want to run the ball. We have two legit running backs in Johnson and Anderson, and they're pretty deep at the position, supposedly. And we were talking about, and of course, Bob Quinn has invested a lot of time, energy, money, and draft picks in the offensive line. And then watching the game yesterday, Tyler Decker looked like a budding All-Pro as a rookie. He's regressed every season since, to the point where yesterday he looked like Greg Robinson out there, literally a turnstile. I think he had, 4 penalties called on him. One was declined. He gave up, if I read it right today, he gave up 2 sacks. One of them was that blind side of Stafford that led to a fumble. And I think 5, 6, 7 hurries, at least according to one of the beat writers. We were sold all season that the strength of this team is going to be the offensive line. They're going to be able to run the ball. I don't remember seeing a hell of a lot of running lanes for the running backs yesterday. I don't remember really any of the offensive linemen really standing out, not being road graders on the running game like that. Like Patricia said, that's what we want to do. And the offensive line looked like it did last year. It just looked mediocre. And if you want to run a quote unquote at least balanced offense, ball control offense. I don't know, whatever their plan is. You need an offensive line to play a hell of a lot better than they did yesterday. And they were bad yesterday, if you ask me.
No, they weren't good. There's no question about that. The Kerryon Johnson era is he wasn't a factor.
They averaged 3.5 yards a carry yesterday. That's awful.
I thought an under the radar acquisition was C.J. Anderson. I thought that was an under the radar kind of a good pickup to kind of bolster the running attack. And I thought he had some. Excuse me, he ran hard, but no, you're right.
Yeah, they were okay, but there was no lanes for him either.
Yeah, the offensive line was not, and Decker was bad. There's no question about that.
And we're not experts. And when fans at home watch offensive line play, and you actually stand out like that, that's how bad. That's bad because if a line's playing well, a guy shouldn't stand out like a sore thumb like that.
Yeah, well. On the positive side to the line, I thought Hawkinson, who's not a lineman obviously, but in the blocking schemes that I saw, Hawkinson was as advertised as a blocker.
I was not sold on that draft pick, and he shut everybody up the way he played. I'm blocking and receiving, obviously. Like the touchdown to Amendola, he managed. It was Hawkinson who picked up. Suggs coming off the edge and chipped him just enough to allow Stafford to get that pass off. And that is a veteran play he made in the blocking game.
No, it was. But let's go back to what you said about Quinn with the offensive line because that bears repeating. There's a lot of and specifically what you said about putting a lot of resources into the line, both vis-a-vis free agent signings, i.e. Rick Wagner, and high draft picks, i.e. Glasgow, i.e. Decker, i.e. Ragnow. Okay, so there's a lot of, and these aren't free. These aren't waiver pickups. These are guys who have drafted way up high in the draft, or were signed with big time free agent
2 first-round picks and a third-round pick.
There's a lot of, so you can't. It's hard to beat up Bob Quinn here because he's I mean, you could beat him up, I guess, you
can't blame him for Decker because that was a Mayhew pick. But
that's true.
The rest of the offensive line is his handiwork.
No, I mean, it's hard to beat him up for what he's done with the line. I mean, he brought in, Wagner, who's been okay. He's been pretty good.
Yeah.
You can't beat him up for Lang, who retired early because of injury.
Yeah, Lang played at a Pro Bowl level.
They can't. That happens. Ragnow, I thought was good last year. I thought.
About Ragnow, why did they play him at guard last year when he's going to end up at center anyway, and he played center all through college? That's another coaching thing that I still haven't figured out. That they put him at guard last year. Now they make him put him back at center. That made absolutely no sense to me. It seemed like they wasted a year of Ragnow.
Well, that's a good point. But what I'm saying is, you mentioned that they put a lot of
resources into
the offensive line, which they have, and for whatever reason, that really hasn't borne any fruit yet in terms of, Now this is just after one game, so we have to do, this is where you can say, hey, it's only one game of this particular season, but 3.3 yards a rush. Where have we seen that before? That's getting old. It seems like that's all they've been doing since Barry Sanders retired. Is average 3.3 yards a rush for 20 years. So I mean, it doesn't even matter who they bring in here, running back wise. So it becomes a point in time where you just can't. You don't know what to say or do anymore. I mean, I think that you're way back at the top of the discussion, way back when you said that the Patricia thing, how can you have any faith in him, blah, blah, blah. It is starting to get that feel like he's not the guy again, and then they'll be looking for another coach in a year or two again. That's what it looks like. And it looks like that they'll be looking for a new coach around the same time they look for a new quarterback, which could go one of two ways. Look at the Cardinals, though, Al. There was an interesting stat that I did not know until they said it, that The Cardinals are the only team in NFL history to, in back-to-back years, bring in a new coach and a top 10 pick in the same year. They've done it twice in a row. They did last year with Wilkes, and I can't remember who the draft pick was.
Josh. Shoot, I know you're talking because they traded into Miami.
And then this year with
Josh Rosen.
Right, and then this year with
Rosen.
Kingsbury and Murray.
Right.
And so, I don't know.
I'll give you this. At least the Cardinals decided they saw what happened after 1 year. Said, we don't think this is going to work. Let's just cut bait now, rather than drag it out for 2 or 3 years and then make the same decision.
Yeah, that's true. But
I mean, if you for whatever reason you feel confident making that decision, it could backfire completely.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you can say that. Well, that they, I give them credit for cutting bait, but it's not like they fired Wilkes to bring in, the second coming of New Rock.
Yeah, the Cliff Kingsbury stuff was
I mean,
was a head scratcher.
I mean, I personally don't think 1 year is enough for any coach. I mean, I don't care who you are, but that's just me. So you can say you can spin it and say, well, I give them credit for cutting bait, but I would give a team more credit for cutting bait after 2 years. I think that's where you get a better feel, and that's where I think you can legitimately cut bait and say, I just have a bad feeling about this. It's been 2 years. I know it doesn't seem like a long time. I don't like what I'm seeing here. I think that's fair. 1 year I think is ridiculous, so Patricia is supposedly one of these coaches out that they said at the top of the year was on the hot seat, whatever that means. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That I find that a little bit hard to believe because of his relationship with Bob Quinn. But on the other hand, this is bottom line business, and if they win 4 or 5 games this year, there could be a change.
Yeah. A few other things about the game. Actually, we should bring up special teams, which were not good.
No,
they were bad.
No, not at
all. There was obviously Jamal Agnew was sure he was an All-Pro returner 2 years ago, but sure didn't play like one yesterday. With the punt, he muffed the punt, which set up a field goal. Negative. How do you end up with negative 2 yards in punt returns? I mean, that means you're going backwards when you're and he only averaged 16 yards in kickoffs. There was 4 penalties, a couple, either holds, blocking the backs, that kind of thing, and of course the blocked punt. And again, that falls down to depth. I guess we were being sold on this team as building depth. Well, sure didn't show up in special teams yesterday either. Punting game overall was good. Obviously Matt Prater nailed a long kick, but. Special teams have become such an important part of the NFL game now. And you can lose games. You can play well on offense and defense and still lose the game with special teams gaffes. And yesterday, for the most part, special teams did nothing to help out this team, specifically offensively, when it came to return game at all.
Yeah, that was there was the muff punt, which the muff punt. They dodged a bullet there because the Cardinals only got a field goal out of that, even though they got the ball inside the 10-yard line. And then you had the partially blocked punt we talked about. It wasn't good. Prater was good. Was good. And Martin did drop a punt, I think, at the one.
Sam Martin was fine. The punt wasn't his fault.
By the way, he was really upset. Speaking of Martin, he was really upset at that blocked punt. They showed him on the sidelines, and I don't know why he was mad. He was really hot. I've never seen a punter that hot before about a blocked kick. I don't know if he was. I don't know if you saw anything on the field.
I didn't catch it. No.
That would make him that angry, but he was really, really upset.
The only thing I would guess is that the punt got blocked, and there, as you said, there wasn't a full punt block rush on. This one guy came rogue off the edge,
and he didn't look like he
shouldn't have happened.
He didn't look like he was mad at himself.
No,
he looked like he was mad at something else. I don't know if it was the blocking or if it was. They showed it again, and I didn't see anything that would make him that angry. But he didn't look like he was mad at himself. Sometimes these guys, they get mad at themselves, but I don't think – I think he was mad at something else or someone else. But I've never seen a punter react like that. He threw his helmet the whole 9 yards. I mean, he was really, really hot. But anyway, regardless, you're right. Special teams was awful and just terrible. They didn't give up any long returns per se. They were okay on coverage, but their own return game was a mess. And that blocked, partially blocked punt could have come at
a worse time.
Yeah.
But I've seen people. Jamal Agnew was an All-Pro 2 years ago. The thing is with returners, they are like relievers in baseball.
Right.
They're mercurial. They're fungible. Right.
Unless you're Devin Hester or Mel Gray, those kind of guys are good every single year. But no, you're right.
Exactly. I think Justin Rogers, of the beat writer for the Detroit News, made a great point. It's either him or Meineke of MLive, and they said even in his All-Pro year, Agnew had a bad habit of putting the ball on the turf, and even on one of his touchdowns that year, he muffed the punt, picked it up, and took off. So it's not like this guy doesn't have a history of playing fast and loose with the football. So he was, I don't know if losing, if he's lost any burst because of that torn ACL last year or what. But just because a guy was an All-Pro returner 2 years ago doesn't mean it could mean it was just an outlier. It was a fluke. And we've seen that with returners all over the league before. So, if I'm the Lions, I'd have to be thinking 1, 2, 3 times about, do I want him back there at the very least on punt returns?
No, yeah,
because you don't put the ball on the turf.
No, you don't give. Yeah, I know.
You don't get extra chances.
You hit the nail on the head about return men being mercurial. I mean, your analogy to relievers is spot on, because that is exactly the way it usually goes in that kind of business. But that is not what lost the game, obviously.
No, it wasn't. But it sure didn't help.
It didn't help. It's all about field position in the NFL. You can flip it in a hurry with a good return or with bad coverage or both. And a muff punt inside the 10 is usually that's just a death wish. But they avoided it with the field goal. But that was back when the Cardinals weren't doing anything offensively.
Yeah.
If they had recovered that muff punt in the fourth quarter, they would have turned it into a touchdown probably the very next play. The way things were going.
Right. Exactly.
But we didn't really talk about Hawkinson too much. Let's talk about
at least some of the good stuff. Yeah, and there was some good stuff, and specifically Hawkinson, who ended up with 6 catches, 131 yards, and a touchdown. That was an NFL rookie tight end record, at least for a debut game for a tight end. And actually, if I read it right today, it was like in the top 12 of rookie tight end games, period. And then this is the guy's first game. And as you mentioned, he was also solid in the he did some pass blocking. He was he for all the talk, because it was going into the season, we heard a lot of talk. This guy's going to be an elite tight end, but tight ends are rarely successful in their rookie seasons.
Right.
So be patient with them. And then he comes out and looks just like gangbusters, like this. Oh, my God, they got an actual weapon. I mean, he was wide open on some of those balls. I mean, it was the anti-Eric Ebron. Soft hands, made good moves, could block. And when Stafford was in trouble on that touchdown pass, he found an open spot, and and you could already tell there's a big comfort level of Stafford with his tight ends now. So Hawkinson was a revelation. I just hope that this game wasn't an outlier, because all the talk is he's got Gronkowski type talent. Obviously, he's not built like Gronkowski, who was much bigger. But Hawkinson is more, I think, closer to a pass catching. I would say he's more built in the way of a wide receiver than an actual end. But he seems to be able to do all the right. He makes winning plays. I think I'll put it that way. He made winning plays for this team, and we haven't seen that from the tight end position in how long?
No, and he had one. I wouldn't even call it a drop because there was a ball that was thrown behind him.
Yes,
that he couldn't catch. But he also made a really good catch. He kind of turned his body and made a catch on a ball that was not right in the breadbasket. That he had to adjust his body to make the catch. I was impressed by that.
Yep.
The blocking, like I talked about, obviously the touchdown pass where he was. He looked like a veteran on that. The way he ran that route, he looked like a vet. He knew exactly. He wasn't just running around out there. He knew exactly what he was doing.
Right.
He looked like he'd been in the league for 5-6 years, and that was a great play. You mentioned the play earlier when he freed up Stafford long enough to make the play to Amendola for that touchdown. So he was very good. There's no question about that. I don't think this is an outlier. I think this kid is from all I've heard is the real deal. And
because he was being talked up all through camp by the beat writers, saying what they saw of him in training camps that he said that he was open all the time. Yeah,
and so if they, he's another, guy for Stafford to throw to. But Galladay was a little bit quiet. He was a little quiet. I'm not sure if that was by design or what. He didn't have.
Yeah, and that is surprising considering Arizona's starting cornerbacks were both out. One due to injury, one suspended.
Right. One of them's a borderline Hall of Famer himself, and Peterson. So but Hawkinson was good. There's no question about that.
Yeah, Hawkinson was solid. Amendola was solid. Other than the screw up at the end of the game.
Stafford was good. I thought
Stafford was good. Yeah,
I'm not going to complain. That happens.
Yeah, I'm not going to complain too much when your quarterback, throws for nearly 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
it's hard.
Passer rate was like 130 or something. So you can.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not going to get too uptight about his performance. And obviously the second round pick Tavai. He looked lost a few times, but he also made plays. He had a sack, made some tackles. He looked like he belonged, and considering no one had heard of this kid, and yet they made him a second-round pick, he looks like he might be a solid addition to the defense. I don't think he's going to be an impact kind of guy, but looks like he's going to be for a guy in his first NFL game coming from Hawaii. He looked like he belonged.
I was just saying he didn't look out of place. It looks like at the very least that he'll provide some depth.
Yeah, exactly.
At that position, and you're right. I mean, would you prefer to have Jared Davis? Of course, but I thought that he made he took Murray down like the 5'8" little shrimp that he is, and put him down early. I think it was sometime in the first half. It wasn't a full out blitz. He kind of read it wasn't a full out blitz. He kind of read the play.
Yeah, because he was trying to make the edge, and he just ran him down.
Ran through a gap and took a good route. Sometimes you could run right at these guys, and they have the ability. Even a guy who's not too mobile like Stafford,
we've seen Davis do that, for example.
They're able to kind of still juke you because your path is this way.
Yeah,
and you're coming full bore. He took a really nice route to Murray.
Yep.
And when Murray tried to
kept the angle,
evade him, he was on top of him fly on what. So that was a good play. So you're right. He did not look out of place at all. That was heartening because depth has always been an issue for this club as well.
Yeah. All right. No, we got to talk a little bit about the future. Next 5 games: Chargers at home, at Philly, Chiefs come to town, go to Green Bay, Vikings in town. All teams are expected to be playoff contenders. A couple of them are considered to be Super Bowl contenders, like the Chiefs. Packers and Vikings are supposedly part of we've been told all season that the NFC North is one of the toughest divisions in football, and they get 2 of them coming up in the next 5 weeks. And I believe all 5 teams won Sunday. The Lions didn't. So all these teams are 1-0, living up to expectations. The Lions are, I want to say 0-1, but I know it's 0-1, but it still feels like a loss.
I'm to say 0-1, I know.
But the next 5 games really are a gauntlet. This is why we were sold that the Lions need to win this game against Cardinals, because if they come out of this gauntlet at 500, 2 wins, I think people would be okay with it, because that would have made them 500 after 6 games, and you can play out the season. You're still in contention. But seeing what happened yesterday and seeing what these teams are capable of, all of a sudden, in the back of your head, you're thinking this team could end up 0-5-1 to start the season. Will it happen? They could win a game or two. I would hope they would. But the possibility is out there, Greg, that this season could spiral out of control before it even gets started with the schedule.
That's the one thing that could spell
doom.
Patricia's fate would be if they got off to that kind of a start. And the season is, like you said, over before it really gets started, which is what happened last year. If you have 2 straight years, you got to remember why they fired Jim Caldwell to begin with. Why did they fire Jim? Well, they made the playoffs twice in 4 years, whatever. But obviously that they didn't win a game.
They were always in contention, just couldn't get over the hump, at least playoff contention.
So the idea was when they fired Caldwell, which wasn't a big surprise, although you've got some Caldwell supporters out there who felt that it had racial overtones to it. But I'll leave that aside. But the reason he was fired was that the idea was we need to, like you said, get over the hump.
Yep.
We need to take that next step. We thank Jim Caldwell for what he's done here, but we feel like it needs to be taken to a next step by another man.
Yeah.
And now you bring in this other guy, and what happens? Year one, season doesn't even get off the ground really.
And it looked like there was a lot. He had a lot of trouble getting players to buy into his system.
Right. Nobody really got their sea legs. Okay, fine. That wasn't ideal. It wasn't a good look. You bring in a guy to take the next step. He goes 6-10. Okay, fine. But if they come on in year 2 and the season, it's also over before you know it. Now it becomes like, well, what kind of culpability does Bob Quinn have? I mean, at what point he's the one that made the decision. He's the one that said, I'm going to fire Jim Caldwell because I don't think what he did was good enough. I'm going to bring in my buddy from New England who I think can be that next guy to take them to the next level. And what happens? So how he can fire Patricia, but how culpable then is Quinn for making that decision? Is he going to be held accountable and say, look, wait a minute, whoa, time out. You told us, Bob, that you wanted to fire the coach because you didn't think he was going to take that he had done all he could do here. And now you bring in this guy, and we've taken 2 significant steps backward. We want some answers. Can you answer to that? And to me, it's even more pressure on him to answer that question because he has a relationship, a personal relationship with Matt Patricia. If he didn't have a personal relationship, that's one thing. But to bring in a guy who he has a personal relationship with, because it makes the whole franchise look silly. It makes the whole franchise look like you. Now, granted, the Giants supposedly were after Patricia. Full disclosure, the Giants were after him as well. So I get it. It wasn't like the Lions were bidding against themselves. But the bottom line is, let's remember why Jim Caldwell was fired. Now, again, Jim Caldwell is another guy who's not coached either since the Lions, not been a head coach since the Lions fired him. But at what point do you shift the focus from the coach to the GM?
Yeah, they're tied at the hip. You'd have to think that old Martha is going to have to do. If it looks like that Patricia's not working out, that means it's not working out with Quinn. And for that matter, you have to figure out, well, they've been rebuilding this team in the image that Patricia wants it. If we fire him, we bring in another coach. That means we're rebuilding again because the coach is going to want the players in his and how he thinks the team should be built. If this doesn't work right, it's going to get ugly, and it really ultimately does fall in the lap of Bob Quinn because much like how Matt Millen, his holy grail was hiring Mariucci, it really looked like Quinn's holy grail was hiring Patricia, and he put all his eggs in that basket. In Millen's case, it blew up. And it's not looking good for Quinn right now that this could ultimately go bad really quickly.
And, it's not necessarily, Al, it's not necessarily just about wins and losses. It's about all these intangibles. It's the timeout, the relationship with the players, the game management,
the media issues. Yeah,
right.
That's crap.
Yeah. Getting on like a reporter because he was slouching, that kind of stuff. I mean, you haven't done anything in the NFL.
Yeah.
Mr. Patricia, to be talking to a reporter about that kind of stuff.
Once again, being the poor knockoff of Bill Belichick, who can pull that shit off because he's won 100 Super Bowls.
Right, exactly. So, he again, you just get that creepy feeling that he's in over his head, Patricia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah. I hope this whole discussion becomes mute 10 weeks from now.
Right. But I get this weird feeling.
Yeah,
that he's just not cut out for this, and he may end up going back just like Marinelli, just like Morningwig, and other guys go back to being a coordinator.
Schwartz, they all went back to being coordinators and being pretty good at it. Yeah,
right, back to their comfort zone. That's where they when the Eagles hired Schwartz as the defensive coordinator, they had the Philadelphia TV cameras got him coming off the plane in the Philadelphia airport. That's how excited they were for him.
Yeah.
Jim Schwartz. Why? Because of his time spent in Tennessee, not because of what he did as a head coach of Lions, but what he had done in Tennessee as a coordinator, and now he was back to his comfort zone.
Yeah.
Where these guys, they feel comfortable. That's where they start to wonder. They may even ask themselves, why did I want to be a head coach to begin with? This is what I like right here. I like being just in charge of one side of the football. This is my happy zone. I'm a coordinator. That's okay. I look myself in the mirror and say, I'm a coordinator. That's okay. That's fine. I believe me. Don't get me wrong. I understand the appeal of wanting to be a head coach. There's no question about that. There's a lot more. You're in control. There's more fame. There's more. There's more power. There's more. There's a lot to like. There's more money. There's a lot to like about being a head coach. There's no question about it. And it's it's something you want to try. Could I do that? I've been doing this for 8 years. I'd like to see if I can do this.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately for some of these guys, they're able to try that. And if that doesn't work out, they go back to being a coordinator. This happens all over the league. The league is filled, Al, with coordinators all over the NFL who were once head coaches, who were not just once head coaches, but were coordinators. Head coaches, coordinators again.
Yeah.
That goes on all the time, and there's no shame in that. There's no shame in saying, I gave him my shot. I wasn't a good head coach. Linehan, he was another one.
Yeah,
Scott Linehan he couldn't hack it as a head coach. Gunther Cunningham was another one.
Yep.
Good coordinator, wasn't a good head coach.
NFL's littered with them. It's a good old boy network.
It happens. So there's no shame in it. So I understand. Wanting to try that next step, see if you can do it. And Patricia's young enough. If this doesn't work out, I'm sure he'll be hired as a coordinator.
It failed for Bill Belichick the first time too. So it could be a wrong situation. It could be the next time he goes, I made all those mistakes. I won't make them again. It remains to be seen what's going to happen. It's not looking good right now. I think we're both in agreement. We hope this conversation is completely outdated by the end of the season. We're not confident it will be though. All right, we're running low on time as I know Greg's got to get out of here. So as we wrap it up, who's your jerk of the week?
Well, my jerk of the week, Al, are these. It's kind of the NFL in general. How can I describe this? I'm really becoming tired of every single play in the NFL. It seems like seemingly every single play being followed by trash talking or some self-aggrandizement gesture, or always asking for a penalty flag. Everything in the NFL, every single play, it seems like, is got some sort of baloney happening to it after the whistle. Pushing and shoving and trash talking, and I know I'm being kind of esoteric here, but it's discouraging to me to see the league become this trash talking, it's not the NFL that I knew, and it's becoming
Antonio Bryant
kind of mean-spirited. It just well, that's another one. That's a whole different story. But it's just becoming tiresome to see this constant nonsense going on in between whistles and in between plays, and it takes, to me, maybe I'm overreacting to it, but it just takes some of the fun out of watching a game, because I'm expecting it to happen, and when it doesn't, I'm surprised, but I'm conditioned for this kind of nonsense to happen. Every first down is like the biggest first down in the history of the league, and the pointing with the, I don't know, just make a play and go back to the huddle. I mean, what's wrong with that? That seems to be.
I'm surprised he didn't bring up Odell Beckham Jr. wearing during a game. He wore a watch on his wrist that from all accounts was worth over $250,000, $250,000 in a game. He was wearing a watch. Regardless of all that, I can see where you're coming from. There's especially if all the noise that Antonio Bryant has made over this past offseason, that's I think the kind of the poster boy for what you're talking about.
Yeah.
My jerk of the week, I'm going to stay with football, but I'm going with college ball, and I'm going with Hugh Freeze, the disgraced former coach of Ole Miss, who took the job at Liberty. And first, don't get me going on Liberty, which is a far right-wing fundamentalist religious school who is using sports to try and go mainstream. But this has nothing to do with that. Even though as much as I despise that place. Hugh Freeze, obviously is a hypocrite who uses religion as a shield and ended up being caught with hookers and the like, dealing the old hookers and blow type shit. Well, he landed on his feet at Liberty, but he had a back surgery and was going to be unable to coach. So instead of letting his assistants run it, stay in the hospital to get well, he showboats by having a hospital bed put in the press box so he can coach the game from a hospital bed using an iPad and cameras and the like. And then the next game, they put him in some sort of fancy, I don't want to say a gynecologist chair, but what they called it a medical chair. But essentially what this is Hugh Freeze showboating, for one. Trying to keep his name and school in the news for doing something realistically is pretty goddamn stupid. If you're so racked up that you can't get off a hospital bed and you're still trying to work from as a football coach, it's insane. Let alone the precedent that sets for his players who think, well, good Lord, how hurt am I? But coach is in so much pain, but he still came to the game in a hospital bed. I can't miss any time. It's just a horrible precedent from a guy who wants to keep his name in the news and get his school in the news, and it's just more college football being the ugly, stupid thing it can be at times. So my jerk of the week is Hugh Freeze for being essentially a showboat, playing in pain for absolutely no reason at all other than to say I did it. So he's my jerk of the week. And if someone who's had back problems, don't get me going. All right, Greg, let's wrap this up because I know you got to hit the road.
Okay, yes, let's indeed do that. I want to remind everybody that in 2 weeks we'll be joined by Nick McCabe. It'll be a fun interview.
Yes, looking forward to it.
Yes, we will be chatting up Mick. So follow me on. I didn't have a column this weekend, no column this weekend, but normally every week I do on my WordPress blog, Out of Bounds, and also if it's hockey, it's the Wind Wheel.
Getting closer.
Getting closer. Also hosted by WordPress. Oh, by the way, speaking of hockey, I talked to Ken Cal a couple days ago, and Ken's agreed to come on the show, but he wants to come on later on once the season is maybe 2 or 3 months into the season, so we'll probably have it maybe around the first of the year. He says, let's see where we're at. And I said,
I've talked to Ken in the past. We've talked to Ken in the past. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah, so we'll have Kenny on the show sometime probably in the beginning part of the new year. He wants to kind of see where the Red Wings are. I said, that's fine. So we'll have him on, but follow me at Twitter at Greg, and Knee Jerks at the Knee Jerks. And I want to, of course, thank my lovely wife Sharon for putting up with this nonsense every 2 weeks. And thank you, Big Al, for making this Monday, in this case, Monday night so gosh darn fun.
Yeah. Nonsense indeed. I want to give a shout out to Linda, who's working in the ER tonight, and I'll see her in a couple days when we head back up to the cottage. She's busy saving lives in the ER. Thank you to you, Greg, for finding time to do this. I know you were busy this weekend. And also want to let you know to find the show online. You can go to thekneejerks.net. That takes you right to our show page where you can directly download or play the podcast. We're also on YouTube. On YouTube, search for The Knee Jerks, Eno and Big Al, where you can see us in video. As always, we are on iTunes, and of course, we are on Stitcher. Obviously, our podcast is available on pretty much every podcatcher, whatever you want to call it. Just search the Knee Jerks, Eno and Big Al, but specifically iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and, of course, direct download. With that, let's get the hell out of here. So, until this time, 2 weeks from now, we'll get to talk to Mick McCabe and probably bitch about the Lions some more. This is Al Beaton saying good evening, good luck, and aloha.
Shout out to everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks.